accordance with Charlie Baker's March 10th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The Finance Committee of the Quincy City Council will be convening via remote conferencing services that will air on QATV, Channel 9, Government Access on Tuesday, September 8th at 5:30, relative to any and all matters pending in this committee, including but not limited to the $14 million appropriation of constructing a special ed learning center here in Quincy. Pursuant also to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of the public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. So to start off,
I'm going to call a roll.
yeah, I'll have Jen Manning call the roll.
Councilor Kane.
Present.
Councilor Kroll.
Present.
Councilor DeBona.
Present.
Councilor Harris.
Present.
Councilor Yang.
Present.
Councilor Mahoney.
Present.
Councilor Palmucci. Councilor Phelan.
Present.
Chairman McCarthy. 8 members.
Present. Thank you. Over the weekend, Thursday or Friday, I received 3 packages that I forwarded out to the committee. One with the breakdown of cost of the $14 million for the Learning Center. A second was the debt service breakdown that Mr. Mason is here tonight to talk about, if anyone has any questions for him. And lastly, the schematic, the layout of the center itself. I don't know, is Mr. Hines on? Yes, Mr. Hines. Mr. Hines, I'm going to turn it over to you, Paul. I figured you would start off with the center and the breakdown, and then we'll go to the committee members for any questions to you and also any questions to Mr. Mason. Thank you. The unmute.
All right, there we go. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity for you once again with regard to the Learning Center, the proposed Learning Center at 178 180 Old Colony Avenue. I'd like to initially represent to you who from the project side is on the Zoom meeting. And we have James Mackey from Westling Architects. We have EJ Korbinski from EBI Engineers. I saw another, obviously we have Erin Perkins from the school department. And if there's anybody else that's below on my screen, I apologize for not introducing you and acknowledging your presence. I think everyone's pretty familiar with the concept of the center, the Learning Center, having presented previously to the council on it in the initial funding round that provided the wherewithal to purchase the property, which has been completed, and gave us some monies to ramp up with design and conceptual matters and initial testing and test borings and survey of the buildings and systems and all of that. And I'm pleased to say we're in great shape with regard to all of that. The system survey's gone well. The design is amazing. Kudos to Westling Architects and the team there, and certainly now Superintendent Mulvey and Erin Perkins for their invaluable contribution to the programming aspect of the building. I always or often say that, my Department of Public Buildings, we set the stage on which everybody else plays out their role. And that's really one of those situations is evident here in that we met with them, we developed the concepts of the programming that they need, the population proposed for this building needs, what the staff needs, and together with the design professionals pulled it together into the schematics that you see here and was shared with you earlier. So if you would like, I'd run you very quickly through the floor plans. I'm sure each one's looked at them. But in essence, this is the old Howard Johnston's Candy Factory, if anybody is that old. And it consists of 2 buildings built at 2 different times, different construction methodologies. One linked at one point in time by that common atrium type lobby that you see in these illustrations in kind of like a grass green. And the building, for the most part, is 3 stories tall. One portion of it that we call Building A is the left-hand building. Building B is the right-hand building. So Building B, the right-hand building, has a partial 3rd floor. So the organization of the floor plan follows several common themes. That there are neighborhoods, as they've been called, dubbed in our meetings. So the population, the students, the children in the program in this facility are grouped by age, by class, and by needs. And there's integrated classrooms as well, dispersed throughout. So you can see that the description of each room is on it, the type of a class that would be in there. So on the first floor, we have 14 classrooms on the first floor, in addition to administration space, therapy rooms, parent resource rooms, a conference room, the mechanicals and such, and some testing rooms. There's a faculty room is located there as well. And you'll see in the upper right-hand corner of this graphic, there's a backup house type thing. It's a receiving area for food service. We had several different design iterations, but it's worked out layout of the building and cost. It works out better that food service is actually on the 2nd floor of the building rather than the first for various reasons. So deliveries and such, the back of house operation of food services would come to the building directly off of St. Anne's Road, stays away from the main entrances of the building so as not to complicate and further congest the egress and the entry of the students and the staff and parents and whoever else is coming into the building. And then they go upstairs in a freight elevator with the goods and the foods and all that is needed to support the food program. The student population is estimated to be over 300 students that be served here. So you'll see on page 2, Chris, if you want to, unless anyone's got any questions on this page, we'd advance to page 2. All right, Chris, can you swap over to the 2nd floor plan? There you go. So you'll see on this iteration, again, the central atrium type lobby is in that grass green color. The classrooms are in the blue. They're like the specialty rooms, the therapy rooms, the calming room, the speech, the muscular therapy. They're in yellow. And the large portion of the top right corner is the food service area, both food preparation, food storage, and service, a cafeteria area for the students. That looks like you scroll down a little bit more, Chris. I think you've got it. There you go, a little more. There you go. So that orange or mustardy color to the top right is the food service area. And this does have a full service kitchen, industrial kitchen for food preparation, not just warming and service. And in a number of conversations with Superintendent Mulvey and Erin and others on their team, including Sarah DeFore with the food services, it was opted that the best option for this facility, because of specialty issues with food allergies and other dietary needs, and to keep it marketable with other programs and other facilities in other towns, some of our out-of-district students, we needed to be able to provide for these students and accommodate their needs appropriately. So you'll see there is a large eating room, the student dining room, towards the left of the mustard or orangey color area, and to the right is the food service and preparation area. There's some storage for furniture and things. So when this room doubles as a professional development room, there's quite a bit of professional development in this staff, given the needs of the students. And it's a high concentration of employees in this facility, given the teacher and para ratio to students. You see all the egresses are appropriately done. There's one other thing, obviously, I could mention on any floor. I'll mention it now because I just remembered it, is that we've added an elevator to serve the 3 floors and fully rebuilding the existing one. The existing one's over 20 years old. It's said to at times be problematic. It's a little bit on the smaller size. And though while code, we are compliant with the one elevator, given the student population, the feeling is if there's a need to vacate and empty the building in an urgent situation, that it's better to have the second elevator for student use. So as to evacuate, whether it be chairs or walkers or, cognitive issues, just mobile issues, whatever the issue, whatever the need of that child is, we're able to more readily egress them if we have that second elevator. The next page, Christopher, if you would, is the third floor.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Commissioner, just so everyone knows, my computer's acting very slowly, so I'm having a little trouble scrolling. So I'm not being,
There you go. You got it. That's
I'm
all
not
you
being
need.
really, really bad at this. It's the computer's fault. I apologize.
It always is, Chris. All right. So Christopher has brought up the third floor plan. And you'll see again to the left is building A, and there's 5 classrooms there and another therapy room. And there's office space for the OT and PT, those type service providers. There's a work area for faculty. In the blue area along where the crescent of the building, where the building bends, it's called Life Skills. And that's for the older student population. They help them with home skills, laundry, cooking, that type of thing. So you'll see that it's kind of fitted out as if it were an apartment, and that is the intention, to help develop and promote self-sufficiency skills with these students. Again, we have the common area in the center, the atrium type lobby. At this level, it's really good. It's got clear story windows. It's very bright. Obviously, there's not a need to enter the building at this level, so that's going to be like a multi-purpose space for the operation of the learning center. There's additionally gang bathrooms on this third floor. And to the far right on this level, you'll see gym written in yellow. So the gang bathrooms and the gym are the limit of the third floor in building B. This is a large high ceiling space as it exists today. And it serves very well for purposes of physical activity for the students. We're mindful that it's on an upper floor. The design team has taken that into consideration with regard to wall treatments and floor treatments and padding, so as not to be transmitting sound in an offensive way to the lower levels. It's fully egressed appropriately, and with the double wide doors in the hallways, when need be, the activity of the gym, the physical activity of the kids can spill out into the multi-purpose room when not being used for other purposes. So that's the layout of the proposed center, kind of generalized. I mean, plans are almost to some degree self-explanatory. Chris is scrolling down now to show you the architectural renderings of the exterior of the building. This is the exterior as it exists from the Old Colony Avenue perspective. And again, I believe the pictures on the right, are from the back parking lot perspective, the 3-story building to the right in these photographs. You'll see that the facade is illuminated. It's done obviously with LED lighting. It helps, it gives an interest to the building, but as well, it provides plenty of site lighting on the exterior of the building, both for security purposes and for, the pickup and stuff after hours or into the evening in the fall months when it's dark early and this program's getting out. The lighting is designed to be compliant with the Dark Skies initiatives. It's all LED lighting that is downward facing. It's not upward facing. So it's to help promote that program. The pickup and drop off by parents would be on Old Colony Avenue. The civil work, the design for that is done. That's done in the front. The school buses for the student pickup and drop off, those that are transported to school, happens in the back of the building, so that the two sides are opposing entrances, so as to help alleviate any congestion or confusion with buses and parents. We've all seen drop-offs at schools pickups, and they can be somewhat hectic. So it's designed to help to minimize that condition. And I think it's really, from what I've learned by the needs for the programming and the design that's presented, I'm proud to be part of this. It looks nice.
Great, thanks, Paul. And my apologies. I forgot to start off with the main man here, our new superintendent, Mr. Mulvey's on with us tonight. So welcome, Mr. Mulvey. Great to see you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCarthy. Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well, and I'm glad we were able to go over these plans with you today on such an important project. And I just want to thank everyone for their consideration tonight, and particularly Paul Hines and everyone from Westling Architects, and of course my Assistant Superintendent, Erin Perkins, who was instrumental in working with us in putting together these plans to benefit our special education students, which is going to be so important, particularly with regard to our students with autism. This program is just going to be transformative for these kids, and I just look forward to further discussions with you on this program. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Superintendent. Questions for Mr. Hines from my colleagues? Mrs. Mahoney?
Thanks, Dave. Just a couple of questions. So for Westling Architects, how many other schools, such as this special education building, have they designed?
I'll ask that you, who's ever operating the mics, would unmute James Mackey from Westling and let him address that directly.
Okay, thank you. Westling Architects has been involved with a number of schools. This is probably the first building that we've designed, or at least that I've designed, with where the entire theme of it is special ed in mind and in character. There have been other hybrid programs and hybrid buildings that we've worked on, but this would be the first one that is 100% for special needs.
What other schools, could you just tell me what other schools you've worked on? Just any other public schools that you've worked on, just out of curiosity?
We have, well, there's someone else in the office who is working on several schools here in Quincy, and we've done a number of projects over the years. This is the first one in Quincy that I've worked on myself.
So what other schools in Quincy then, I guess? I mean, for your architecture firm, not necessarily you, but what other schools would be in your portfolio? I'm just curious.
Montclair, I know that was one of them that we worked on. We did a couple of schools a few years ago. Forgive me if I don't know all of the names.
That's okay.
We did a couple of schools a few years ago where there was window replacement projects.
Correct.
That we worked on.
Okay.
And although it was a former school, we did do Coddington Hall.
Okay. But no other schools outside of Quincy that you've done from top to bottom, programmatic, not special ed, just any schools, like, in any other communities?
We did one in Salem. I think the name of that was St. Mary's.
Yeah. And are you part of, I know that this is not part of the MSBA's program, but are you part of the architectural firms from the MSBA, just out of curiosity?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then my other question, and I'm not sure if it's to you, but it's curious. I know there's 300 students that are going to be in this building for the program. And then also, I'm just going to go to the parking for our drop-off section first. What time would this school open for drop-off and pickup? Do we know? Maybe that might be to Mr. Mulvey. I don't think it's the architecture that would answer that.
I think the mics are muted.
Yeah, Kevin, there you go.
Oh, thank you. So thank you, Mrs. Mahoney, for that. If you wouldn't mind, I would like to have our in-house expert on special education talk on that, and that would be
okay.
Mrs. Perkins.
Okay.
Hello, Mrs. Perkins.
Hello. So there's 2 times. So there's 7:35 for the students in preschool, and then 8:30 for the rest of the school.
And then what typically time is pickup for them? Is it a longer day or?
So the pickup would be at 3 o'clock, so it would be 8:30 to 2:45. And then the preschool, it depends. So there's a couple of different programs. There's a half-day program and then a full-day program. So the full-day program would get out at 1:50, and then the half-day is 10:10, and then 11:10 to 1:50.
And Aaron, if I may, I'm sorry, Aaron, you guys coordinated that with the pickup and drop off for the start and end time of Central Middle School that's adjacent to it, correct?
Right, because they're 8:15. So we did ours at 8:30 for the traffic purposes.
Okay, and that is the reason why I'm asking, because currently Old Colony it's a one way, and you have to come out on the St. John's Road. I'm not sure what the name of that street is, but they have to come out that way, and it's very congested over there. So I just wanted to make sure that was being taken into consideration. The other thing, and I don't know who I direct this question to, but we are in a from the time that the funding to buy this building and to today, we're in a different time frame in the world. We're in the middle of COVID-19. Schools, I know that you guys are challenged with how we're going to be able to bring kids back, and lots of meetings have been going on all over the summer for that. But what's the impact for a building like this? I mean, we haven't, we're not able to bring our students back, and we don't know what the impact long term is going to be for COVID and how our buildings work. Yet we're building a building based on pre-COVID, I would imagine, pre-COVID conditions. So could somebody talk to me about that?
I could add some to it. It's part of the HVAC survey and design.
Mm-hmm.
We have heightened the ventilation abilities to above those required by code, and are able, when needed, to throttle them back down to meet the energy code requirements. In addition to that, there's technologies out there that we've investigated and we're employing in this design with the global bipolar ionization, if I can say it right. And it basically ionizes the air that's brought in, the fresh air that's brought in, and charges the ions so that they cling to a multitude of growths in the air, viruses, mold, spores, bacteria, make them large enough so that they are trapped in the filtration system, but also render many of them harmless in and of themselves. So we're taking this a step higher for that purpose. And one of the issues with the population that's coming into this building is that if any students come back into the Quincy Public Schools, those with heightened needs have to be included.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'd still need a facility to have any of our students back. We'd have to be able to provide for this population.
Right. So one other question is, how many students in the classrooms that you're showing? Because the program wasn't actually built out at the time we were saying, when the building purchase came to us. You're saying 300 students. Are there certain rooms that have maybe, what's the average classroom size?
That's clearly an Aaron's ballpark.
So we have, in the integrated preschool classes, there are 15 in each session, so a total of 30 children that would be attending for those classes. And then in the CARES classrooms, there would be no more than 12, probably closer to about 9 students.
And would you be using, so you're going to have a morning and an afternoon session, so you'd be using the same rooms for the morning and afternoon session. And again, just going, not knowing what the future is going to be with, everybody will say we'll never really be back to our normal. So what we're thinking about is how we're going to be able to maintain the cleaning of those. And it's not built yet, Erin, and I know everything has been extremely challenging. I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes as to how you build out this program and manage some of the challenges that we have today, which when you listen to whatever news channel you're listening to is different every day, but basically saying it could be a year from now before we're even close to what's normal, or longer, or maybe never back to normal. So how do you handle that?
Well, so we're actually doing our half-day pre-K program right now. So we're actually bringing them back, and we're doing the AM and PM session. What we did was we tweaked the hours a little bit. So that we could have a good hour in between to clean our classrooms. So I would say the same thing. I mean, we are using all of the Department of Education safety protocols. I think in a classroom like a CARES classroom, it's actually a little bit, it's challenging because, trying to keep the students socially distant and understand that is a challenge.
Yeah.
But the space, because those classes are smaller, in terms of space, it actually is a little bit easier. But But, I mean, I think that, we have cleaning protocols in place. We're currently doing our AM PM session. We're starting it on the 21st. So
Yep. I appreciate that. I just wanted that feedback just because it's, when we're talking about building out, it is very concerning to me when we're talking about building out this building, just because we don't know, you can take the best steps and say we're doing more than what we would do today. But in 6 months, they might tell us that we should be doing something different than we are doing today. We could be already investing in what we think we should be doing. It's just a hard call to say because it's an incredibly large investment, and we want to make sure that we're doing it to be able to really service for the longevity of the students. So thank you. Thank you for now. That's it for me, Mr. Chairman, for right now. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. And congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Chair recognizes Councilor Palmucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to everyone. Nice to see you. I just very briefly wanted to put my 2 cents in. I think this is really just an exceptional project, one that I likely, should it pass, that I likely look upon fondly and being incredibly proud of having been able to support it. I applaud the school department and the administration. One, for exploring this as a possibility some time ago, and then two, for putting it forward. I know these things take a lot of work to come together, and so I applaud everyone involved. For me, this is a true no-brainer. Through this project, we get to bring Quincy students back to Quincy, rather than shipping them out on buses to other communities that they know they don't live in. We get to educate them in their own city, in our city. And it's not just any students that we're bringing back here, but our special needs students, arguably the most marginalized population we have in our school population, our children's school age population. These kids are the most at risk of in a lot of different ways, namely suicide rates among students with special needs and learning disabilities are 5 times higher than students without. So what we're doing here, we look at it on paper, we look at drawings, we look at debt ratios and payment schedules and bond rates. But really what we're doing here and what we have the opportunity to do with our votes on this particular project is to help those kids who need it the most, who would benefit the most from it. Allowing these kids to go to school in their hometown where they don't have to be sent out of district is something that I can only imagine the pride that they would feel from that and the improvement that would have over their overall school experience here in Quincy. So again, it's a no-brainer for me. Oh, and of course, overall, we're going to save money in doing it. So the taxpayer benefits, the children benefits, the taxpayers benefit. To me, that's a no-brainer. I'll be voting in support. And again, I thank the administration and the school department for bringing this forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Chair recognizes President Liang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just have a couple of questions for process on this. And so, Paul, I think this goes to you first, but what was the process for the design here? So I know that a little while ago you guys had worked with the school committee and you had also had a session with parents as well. And so taking that into consideration as well as with what's going on right now with COVID and what you're building into it, I imagine what's being built in to address COVID isn't going to be something that's going to be a permanent fixture in the school. But if you could just talk through what your process was to get to this design that you have in front of us today, that would be helpful.
Okay, I'll start with the COVID piece first. Much of the programming and the programmatic response to COVID, as Erin was speaking to, may in fact go away. Hopefully we go back to a normal world and we're safe again. But the physical design, the HVAC system with the ventilation systems and the technologies that I'm speaking to would be a permanent fixture, and they would stay. As far as the design and the program and the layout, Westling's architects team, I have to admit I did not go, but Dr. DeCristofaro Superintendent Mulvey, Erin, Assistant Superintendent, Deputy Superintendent Erin Perkins, and a number of their staff and team did field trips to a number of different facilities who provide the services, some of which are providing service to students we want to bring back to Quincy to see what they have for services, what they have for space, what they have for programs. The facility itself, the quality of it, the cleanliness of it, the operational aspects of it. So they did a bunch of hands-on, real-time research that way. But obviously, there was a good bit of reading and consulting of the specialty trades and things attendant to the special needs population, the autism particularly. And then, people would just come forward ideas and just in the design meeting sit and think and like, well, what if this situation happens? How do you address it? So a lot of the improvements to design came out that way. And it really has morphed from our initial thoughts of what we would have to what's before you tonight. One of the things like bathrooming, so every classroom has a bathroom for the students so that the students, if a particular child needs assistance with toileting or whatever, the classroom teacher, the para doesn't need to leave that classroom. That bathroom is there for the student and for the use of the student, many times on an emergent basis, and just planned ones as well. So it morphed by in-person, face-to-face conversation and hypotheses, but certainly their field trips, their own investigations and research, and then the expertise that I'm still impressed with that Wesleyan has brought to the table.
Okay, and then are there any environmental considerations that were applied to this building as well, whether it's solar panels or lighting systems in the rooms that automatically turn off unless somebody comes into the space?
Correct. That's all of that is D, all the above. So with the solar panels, there's currently on one of the buildings, Building B, Building A, there's already solar panels. Eastern Nazarene College, the former owner, did array on a number of their own buildings, and this array is captured into that agreement with their provider. Solicitor Timmons may speak to that. That was part of the negotiation of the purchase of the building, was severing that facility out. We have, with Shelley Dean in our department, have investigated perhaps upgrading those panels because they're somewhat aged and not as productive as they could be, but also expanding and putting additional panels in a larger array on top of Building B, the one that has nothing at this point. I did mention the downward exterior lighting to be compliant and aware of the Dark Skies Initiative. The HVAC system, the replacement systems are obviously designed to be economical with the ventilation. Air heats air that's being induced into the space. So before you burn one piece of fossil fuel or 1 kilowatt hour, you've already to some degree tempered the air, when in days of old that hot air just would have been blown up the side of the building. The lighting systems, the lighting control systems, there's a balance to be had. In some of the buildings today, the lighting control systems are so advanced and so difficult to operate, you need a degree in it. And we find that they're being overridden to avoid that problem. So my charge to the design team here was to keep it simple. So you walk into a room, there'll be light switches like we're accustomed to, but there'll also be sensors in the ceiling. So if somebody walks out of the room and leaves that light switch on, the lights will shut off. But if somebody's in that room, and let's say they want to watch a video or have used the smart boards or digital projection, they can shut the lights off. So in that room, you can control your lights, but you can't leave them on, but you can turn them off when you'd like to. It's the simplest system there is. It's code compliant, and it's what we need.
Yeah, I think it's those little things like that, though, that add up and make a difference. I appreciate that, you and your team have considered that. And then this question, I think, might be for Eric. There's been quite a bit of information that we have received and in conversations that I think folks have been able to have around this about the cost savings that we're going to have to the city to be able to bring students back here, as opposed to the current method we have, which is sending them out, outside of the city, and the cost of transportation, the cost of actually sending them out there, cost for overnights, et cetera. So that all adds up. And again, part of why I think this is beneficial for us here in the city long term is, again, that sort of overtime cost savings that we're going to see here. And I know that as of right now, things are unknown, but with anything, a build out takes a certain amount of time before you then start to occupy that building, right? And so this is a timeline question, but it's also back to when we're going to see that cost savings, returned back to us. So I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head, what is the timeline for the actual build out of the space before it can be fully occupied?
I believe that the Commissioner Hines could answer that question better, Councilor. Maybe Mr. Perkins.
At this point, frankly, we have the costing modeling done. We don't have the timeline of construction at this point. It's been thrown in a loop because of the delays caused by Corona and the COVID issues. I mean, we've had difficulty getting equipment, rooftop equipment, spoiler equipment for other buildings that are under construction or under renovation because factories, various spaces in the world have shut down at varying times. There's a supply line issue throughout the globe that to some degree is starting to resolve, but all of that has to be built into a construction schedule. So it obviously makes that more of a challenge to develop that schedule.
For planning purposes, though, is there a rough timeline that you guys are building out? And again, back to, when we're going to be able to actually realize the cost savings on this, I'm sure we're taking a look and saying, if we're going to go ahead and move forward with this, there are going to be incurred costs before construction can even start, right? With design and retaining, folks to make sure that we have everything on hand to move forward with that. And so I'm just feeling like the gap, the bigger the gap before we can actually have a shovel on the ground,
Right.
the longer it doesn't take for us to realize the savings on that, right?
Yes.
So I just want to I'm sure you guys are planning for that. And so if you can just give us a sense of what that looks like, ideally, what are we planning for actually construction start and end time? And then when we can start occupying that building, and between the time we can start occupying it to full capacity, because I believe from what I've been looking at, it's when we hit that full capacity that we'll actually be able to see the benefit of this project, which I'm excited for. I just want to have an understanding of when that is.
My understanding at this point, if the supply chain issues are resolved, this is about a 20-month build out. It's a substantially larger program than we started with because of the pervasive use of plumbing. So they have bathrooms in every classroom, which are a necessity, but it's a lot of work. The other piece, and I went to business school, but I'm not going to pretend to have the municipal finance knowledge as Mr. Mason does. Although we get your authorization, presumably, and hopefully get your authorization for the funding, the bonds aren't sold until we need to pay the bills. So the debt service on those bonds starts only when we write the checks. And at that point, we're in construction. So that gap narrows down.
Okay. And then do we have an understanding of between, let's say, the 20 months is up and the building is, ready to be fully occupied at this point? Again, what are we looking at full capacity out of the gate?
So in the cost modeling, that's based on 30 student capacity. That's about where we start seeing cost savings. So this building is obviously going to be far higher than 30 students, but at 30 students at time of occupancy, that's right where we start having pretty significant material savings that can be confidently projected.
Only 30.
Okay. Do we have an idea of when we're going to be able to hit that, though?
I believe
Erin?
30. I don't want to overstate.
That's for Erin, if I could respectfully suggest that. Erin?
Beat me to it, Paul.
So, as soon as we can start bringing families, I think it's going to be important for families to see the program. So if I'm a parent who has sent my child to the May Center or to Social Collaborative, I think it's really important for us to have an opportunity to bring those families in and give them tours and to show them what the program's going to look like in real time. But, I do think that we have a number of students every year who we, for various reasons are unable to meet their needs within the district that we send to out-of-district placements. And, so say last year we sent 10 children out to programs like Melmark or the May or something like that. Those 10 children will no longer be going to an out-of-district placement. They would move over into the Learning Center. So I think, in my opinion, I think we're going to see a lot of children coming back once we can show them the program and show them what it looks like and show them this unbelievable state-of-the-art building that, will rival anything that they're sending their children to. And it's a community-based school in Quincy. I think we'll be able to. There's a lot of parents who've already asked me. I've had families or people call from other districts asking if we're open yet to take students for tuitioning in. So I think there's a lot of interest, and I think once we can show it to them, it will move fairly quickly.
That's great. Thank you. And then, so who, I know that, I imagine we don't have a GC on this project yet, right? But moving forward, who's sort of the go-to person to oversee this, to give us updates if we have questions as far as how the construction is coming along? Are we hitting the 20-month deadline? You know, what are we looking at as far as interest and capacity goes? Is that just a conversation that we can have between Paul and Erin, yourself, you know, as we start moving this process forward?
Yeah, as far as the physical construction and the scheduling, that would be in my wheelhouse, but the population growth and the transfers obviously would be the school department. And we would be engaging, as required by Massachusetts law, engaging an owner's project manager to assist in the construction. It's a large undertaking, and with approximately 60 other buildings, we really couldn't dedicate the resources to do it entirely in-house, and nor do I think we would want to. There's an expertise to those that serve as OPM in projects such as this. And I think the cost of that is well supported by the savings on the back end with schedule compression and redundancies of efforts.
Okay, if you could just let us know when a project manager is selected and who that point person is, I think that would be helpful again for us to just make sure that we're staying up to date with what's going on. Superintendent Mulvey, I just want to say congratulations, and to you and Erin, Paul, and folks in the school committee. I know a team of your people who are not here on this call. I know how much work you put into this. I know it's such a passionate project of all of yours. So I appreciate you guys being here and answering our questions. You know, I'm excited for this building. I think that, you know, and I've spoken to you guys about this before. Had this building been here when my younger sister, you know, was under 26 and able to go through this program, it would have been amazing instead of taking her to Braintree and now Weymouth. You know, so I am really excited. It is obviously a huge undertaking for this city. And so, you know, we just need to make sure we're doing our due diligence to make sure that, you know, we are going to see these savings, but we're going to see those savings sooner rather than later. And I know with all these unknowns, you're doing the best that you can and making the most educated decision on this. And I appreciate that you guys are here to help us make an educated decision as well. So thank you. And that's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilor Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just also want to spread my support for this. I've gone through all the data, and it looks like tremendous savings in money. And having had a child who went to an outplacement outside of Quincy, I can really feel for those parents. And we're taking a really needed segment of our school population that really needs the closer to home. I would think the better. So I'm gonna vote for this. I'm excited to see it come online. I think it's a great thing for Quincy to have, and as a parent, I would have loved to have my kid in Quincy. And I think this is a step in the right direction. I think it's you see the cost savings. It's basically a no-brainer looking at that. So congratulations, Superintendent Mulvey. I think this is a great step for the school department in Quincy. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to be recorded as being in favor.
No, thank you, Councilor Phelan. Any other councilors want to chime in? Councilor Kroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the team this evening for providing us with this presentation. You know, a couple things come to mind. You know, obviously, number one, I voted in the affirmative to acquire the building. Geez, it must have been right before we went on council break. And if memory serves, and there's been a lot of numbers that have went through my brain over the last couple months, it was probably to the tune of maybe $6.5–7 million. I think is the acquisition cost. They could shake their head. I think the bond may have been somewhere around like $8 million. So we had maybe roughly, call it $1–1.5 million to begin a fit out, I think, as it was originally presented. Is that relatively accurate?
Actually, Councillor, I'm glad you brought that up. I did check the munis today on that. And part of that authorization, that appropriation was for both the acquisition and the start the development. So those funds are what has been funding the surveys of the building and the systems, funding the services of the design team and the engineering firms. And at this date, as of today, and obviously the designs are substantially complete, as are all the surveys, there's just under $630,000 remaining of those funds.
So when we contemplated, and I'll just use myself as an example, $14 million in this bond authorization, were you surprised by that number as, quote, the supplemental figure?
Well, I respectfully wouldn't suggest it's a supplemental figure. I mean, it was always intended. It is the primary figure. The acquisition, obviously, is the first step. So in that regard, it's primary. And there was a cushion to allow the development. If we didn't have a funding source to get these plans done and the surveys done and be able to get a cost for the building, we couldn't come to you with the request for the substantial fee for the actual funding for the construction. So it was a little bit of the cart before the horse and some seed money. Given the extensive plumbing and the full service kitchen, food preparation, preparing kitchen, the need to add the elevators, the modification of the existing bathrooms, all at prevailing wages, and seeing what I'm getting for prices and some of the work in the other buildings. I'm not taken aback by it. I'm not surprised by it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely piqued my my attention for sure when I saw the number, and just to put it out there, I mean, fully support the idea of providing the service in the city of Quincy. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of public schools, and I think this allows us to be a differentiator throughout not only the community but through the state. With respect to, again, Assistant Superintendent Perkins had mentioned it, offering this literally as a community outlet. Where I go, is just looking at things through the total picture, right? So we're in a environment, if you will, that is new to all of us, right? We're operating inside of a pandemic. I know that we were fortunate enough to be presented with close to a level funded budget, that basically showcased no decrease in service, which I thought was great, with the anticipation of no increases in taxes, which I thought was even greater. But I stand at a point now, it's okay, we're going back into the home heating season where many experts way beyond my comprehension seem to believe that we may be back into the throes of a pandemic. And I hope that's 100% not the case. I hope it's 100% not the case. But as I contemplate, the finances of the city, I also sort of wonder, because there's been other items floated out there. Maybe this is a question for Mr. Mason. Because I don't believe that, looking at a project should be done in a singular nature. I think we need to be conscious of everything that we have going on and everything in the pipeline, right? Because at the end of the day, we need to be conscious of, the impact on taxes. So to Mr. Mason, I know this is a discussion on this particular project, but what else, financially, are we looking at in the pipeline? Because again, I mean, I looked at, many cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth who are not in the same position financially as the city of Quincy, and obviously went to the point of reducing services, reducing headcount, and obviously we're in a situation where we appear to be moving forward on some big ticket financial items.
Yeah. So to cover some of the points, Councillor, I think kind of the first one, which is the project coming at $14 million. To reiterate Commissioner Hines' standpoint, that's not too much of a surprise to me, given how much that bond measure included for architectural design. Generally speaking, design is 10% of total project cost. So that would mean when we first approved this, we were probably expecting somewhere around $12 to $16 million. So being right around 14 wasn't too much a surprise when Mr. Hines brought those figures back. That's coming from the National Builders Cost Manuals. They usually design is 9 to 10.5% of total construction cost. In terms of financial issues, looking down the road, that budget and revenue projections was very conservative. If the council remembers, we projected a 20% decline in state aid. That didn't happen. Actually, the state is level funding us this year, which is a pretty substantial unexpected turn. That represents about an $8 million increase from what we're expecting from revenues. So obviously that's a very, very positive financial turn. As for projects coming down the line, my office is engaging the completion of a capital budget. And as we maintain that 5-year rolling CIP, we just completed earlier this fall CIP Phase 4. So CIP Phase 5 is going to be accompanied by an extended catalog of what some of the projects we've completed and going forward are. So in terms of stuff looking down the road, outside of the imminent public safety building, everything else would be included in that capital plan that should be presented to the council in this session.
So you have another capital plan coming in as well?
Yeah, so we're maintaining the rolling CIP. So it doesn't necessarily it doesn't have bond authorization attached to it. It's more of a survey of the needs of the city from a capital standpoint, as opposed to our normal operational survey we do with the budget every year.
So you're basically just going to present the capital asset plan that has no financial obligation attached to it? Is that right?
I would say it's more of an inventory. So some of the stuff has already been completed. Some of the stuff is new, like new schools and stuff. It's more of a next level analysis on some of the capital projects that exist in the city, whether completed, contemplated, or stuff that may become exposures in the future. Most of it is relevant to plans the council's already seen, such as the hazard mitigation plan, the open space plan, coastal zone management plans. So it's kind of a codification of documents that have been in front of the council.
So there'll be no financial obligation attached to it. It's just essentially an inventory.
Describing as mostly an inventory with, there are costs attached to it. It is coming out of municipal finance. I'm wary about putting anything in front of anybody that doesn't include a number, just because I think that's part of the Office of Municipal Finance responsibility is to try and quantify these different issues we run across. But no, it's more of a survey of our capital assets. And that's going to help us look down the road as we plan on future projects, because we have to know where we are before we know where we're going.
Well, believe me, I'm a member of this body with several of my colleagues who have been asking for capital assets for quite some time. So happy to hear that it's coming. And again, I think this is a needed resource for the city, and I think again, I think it would take us to a next level amongst our neighboring cities and towns. Where I get a little concerned is we're in a space, that hopefully we're not revisiting where we were, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago. And if we do, what does that mean for the elasticity, if you will, with respect to our finances? Good projects. I'm just concerned about the timing.
So if I may, regardless of how that happens, if schools are open, we need to provide for those with the special needs and the higher needs. And if this program, this facility helps to reduce our costs in doing that, it's prudent to build it to reduce those costs going forward, because we will have those higher costs on the city budget. As long as we have one school open, we need to provide for this population. And it will be at a higher cost in the current programming, the current way we deal with it, rather than the lower cost of this facility.
Yeah, I can't speak to a level of specificity with that notion. I would just, from my own experience, which isn't a ton, as a parent of young children, I know that, the way that we're delivering education is certainly changing. And who knows, right? Hopefully we go back to where we were several months ago, but that remains to be seen, right? So where I'm struggling with is the timing of this all.
I think Council, I think one of the important things to weigh when we look at this is the historically low interest rates. On a project this scale, basis points can mean a lot. And these interest rates, I doubt we'll be able to sustain in the long run or see again.
I mean, as you know, Chairman Powell has been on the record as holding pretty close to zero interest rates in the foreseeable future, years. So again,
well, he has spoken about that. He's also talked about about maintaining a 2% inflation rate. And zero Fed rates are very good, but we don't have access to federal rates. That 2% inflation is eventually going to resurge. And right now, Weymouth with their latest school project was 1.77%. That can't exist in a 2% long-term inflation scenario, just by the very nature.
Totally understand. Yeah, I get it. So those are my thoughts. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Chair recognizes Councilor DeBona.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just listening to everyone speak. My time also, obviously, with Councilor McCarthy and Councilor Mahoney, the time on the school committee, we talked about this a lot. And to have it come into fruition right now here in 2020 and our first time after the summer break is great to hear. I'm in full support of this. Just talking to other families, still connected, all three children in the Quincy Public Schools, talking to the young families and some that have already graduated. To see it come in front of us in Quincy is huge. To have it behind a school, Central Middle School, which we just built a few years ago in 2013, just to have it centrally located in the city of Quincy, I think about the travel time that a lot of children have to do out, Lexington and Beverly and Boston and Norwell and wherever they need to go to. And to have it here in Quincy, it cuts down on the travel time between an hour to 3 hours per day, sitting on a bus or sitting in a vehicle for that long. To have them spend it with their families and get them centrally located into the city of Quincy is huge. So I'm in full support of this. I'm happy that I've gotten the input from other colleagues here to hear from all angles at $14 million. But I think it's a win-win in the end. We'll save funding every year, and it's the right thing to do for 300 children. And it's a start. We may be able to grow from this. We may be able to find other facilities across the city that we can expand on this, and other towns, the surrounding towns, can benefit from coming here to Quincy and helping us out financially. So I see what's happened in Braintree, doing an in-house program. And for many, many years, I talked to many, many families, and they said, well, why can't we have it here in Quincy? And here we are at the table talking about it and coming into hopefully a yes vote tonight and getting into a 20-month build. I want to thank Superintendent Mulvey, Assistant Superintendent Perkins, the team of Paul Hines and Eric Mason and the crew and the team for putting this together. I'm looking forward to the future if we have any more discussions upon the 20-month build. So I'm in full support of this. Looking forward to the vote tonight. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor DeBona. I'm going to go right back. We got a couple of minutes to Mrs. Mahoney. She had a couple of finance questions for Mr. Mason.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. So quickly, I want everybody to know that I was questioning when we were purchasing this building, because while I was on the school committee, and Councilor DeBona just mentioned this, we were talking about a language-based learning facility, and this is a different population that we're looking at, so it's a totally different build-out and a totally different ask. And at the time when we were purchasing the building, the school system didn't have a program at all in place. They were working on it, and I know you've been concurrently working on that while we're doing this building. But I have to come back and ask Mr. Mason, and I realize that we don't have a start date, which is concerning to me. We want to fund something without a start date. We know that from the time we start it, Mr. Hines, you're saying if we start tomorrow, it would be 20 months, or it could be 6 months down the road, 20 months approximately, right?
Right. Well, I can't give you a start date unless I have a contract, and I can't have a contract unless I have funding.
I understand that, but you're also saying that you can't estimate certain things, which you could normally do in a normal situation if it wasn't pandemic times where things were back ordered and you couldn't get certain things. With or without a contract, you'd be able to kind of put an imaginary timeline together. With the contract and with the money, we could get this. You can, because in project management, that's what you do. So, Mr. Mason, what is the break even for this project if we get from the 8.5 to the $14 million? And, what's the break even? Are we talking, how many years out are we talking for a break even for this particular project?
Well, I am hesitant to use the term break even when it comes to dealing with a population like this. Break even analysis.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm just going to interrupt for a second, because when we're talking about the savings, I just have to understand, you're saying $340,000 a year savings, and it is it's insensitive to say break even, but in the reality, we're talking about financial terms, and that is, when anybody's doing an investment, whether it's in their home or they're investing in, a renovation or whatever they're investing in, they're going to try to figure out, do I have to pay it off? When am I going to be able to, am I going to get a 5-year loan for my car? Do I get a 3-year loan for my car? So it's really just for the financial terms of those things. So when we're talking about the investment of $22 million, take out of the equation what the building is for, and just tell me what you think that time frame would be for us to have that to where we actually see cash in our pocket.
All right. So cash in the pocket is not going to occur. It's a reducive cost in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see savings the first year it's open. Savings of $1.683 million. So that's going to reduce the necessary flatline increase that we see in the school budget for educating this population.
And that's a projection, right?
Everything's a projection until it actually occurs.
Okay. And it's also a projection as to how long it's going to take us to get if we say yes tonight, how long it's going to take to actually get the program up and running. So so one of the things that I just have a question for you on, Mr. Mason, is you said that you're going to come back before the council and you're going to do you're just saying it to Mr. I'm just looking for my notes because I wrote it down. You were saying it to Mr. Kroll that you're going to come back with a capital improvement, basically an accessory to be able to tell us what we have, what we need, and what the prioritization for the future is, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my concern here tonight is that we're going to vote for something and we don't have the prioritization of what the city is going forward with. And this is definitely something that is on the table. But to be able to have that meeting first before we had the $14 million conversation, we should have had that conversation first, along with the prioritization of this building. We probably would be able to, I would be able to embrace this a little bit better. But with Quincy families, do you know what the percentage of Quincy families are unemployed right now?
This is Mahoney and Mr. Mason. Can I jump in and just say I'll suspend the finance meeting right now so President Liang can open, and then we'll close the city council meeting and I'll come right back.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
That's okay.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Tuesday, September 8th City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please? Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk, I have you muted.
Councillor Kane.
Present.
Councillor Kroll.
Present.
Councillor DeBona.
Present.
Councillor Harris.
Present.
Councillor Mahoney.
President.
Councillor McCarthy.
Present.
Councillor Palmucci.
Present.
Councillor Phelan.
Present.
President Liang.
Present.
9 members.
Thank you. And if everyone can just join me in a moment of silence for all of the women and men who are serving here and abroad, as well as keeping in mind our first responders who are still out there on the front lines every day. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could please read the open meeting law.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you. And in accordance with Governor Charles D. Baker's March 10th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law Chapter 30A, Section 20, the Quincy City Council is holding this City Council meeting via remote video conferencing services, and it is being aired on Quincy Access Television, channel QATV 9 Government Access. With that, I'm going to go ahead and just close this out and go right back into Finance. Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, President Liang, and I will go right back to Council Mahoney, and you can, if you'd like, repeat that question, the last question you had from Mr. Mason.
So, Mr. Mason, I was basically asking, do we know what the impact of the economy is in our own city, what the unemployment? I mean, it's an important question because, unemployment is high throughout the whole state, but when we're talking about bonding a lot of money or just talking about the priorities in Quincy, what I'm asking, do you know how many of our families right now are, unemployed basically based on the WDA?
Muted. Eric is muted.
Yep, I'm right. I'm back. Counselor, according to the MSA, which is the most commonly used statistic for this type of granulation, is 20.9%.
Yeah. So 20.9% of our population, it's the same. It's the
No,
same.
not 29% not 20.9% of our population, 20.9% of our workforce.
Okay.
That's almost half our population.
Yeah. So I'm talking about the workforce too. So 20.9% of our workforce is unemployed, and that is what's being captured through unemployment. Then the people who actually don't qualify for unemployment, which is many of them in the city as well.
Unemployment rate is not, that's incorrect. Unemployment is the amount of people looking for a job who would normally take a job divided by the labor force.
So many times there are a lot of people who fall through the cracks. I know many of those people who fall through the cracks who don't make it into the statistics that we're both talking about. But one of the concerns that I do have is that, many of our families are going through what we're all going through with COVID-19, and they're also reassessing their priorities in their homes, and they're trying to determine what they can do and what they can't do as they kind of navigate what we've all been navigating. And they're expecting the same thing of our government. And what we're not putting forward is what our priorities are here in the city of Quincy. What we came here tonight was to talk about a special education building, but in your presentation, you said that you'll be coming back to the city council with another presentation, which would be our priorities. So what I'm going to ask this, and it's not that I'm against this particular project, but I am against having a conversation about spending $14 million when we don't know what the priorities of our city is. So what I'm going to ask is to table the vote for tonight until you come back with that presentation and explain the priorities to our city, because we have this project in front of us. And in the summer we've talked about, and the other project that's being talked to us about is a police station, which is going to come in around $25 million. Then we also have, am I wrong about that? Maybe higher or less? I'm not sure.
That was discussed last council meeting on that, but I know it's off agenda item.
But my point is that there are a lot of projects that are being prioritized in the newspaper for us all to read. And this one came to us, and it's $14 million, and we're asked to vote on it tonight because we need to get moving on it. But we're not going to actually be able to start using the building for 20 months from the start date. So I'm asking for that presentation to come back with the prioritization of the city of Quincy's finances and what we're going to be moving forward to, so that we can make an educated vote when we're voting for these things. And I'm sure at that point we will be able to make that vote. But for right now, I'm going to ask that we table any discussions for voting on this particular project until we have that from the city.
Okay, the subject's been tabled for this evening on the Special Ed Center. I will work with Mr. Walker and Mr. Mason and company to come back with a list of other priorities in the city, including this priority. And I'll schedule another meeting. So at this point right now, we'll table this agenda item and move back to the city council meeting with President Liang.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, folks. So let's go ahead and shift on over to our agenda for today. Madam Clerk, could you just read the first item on the agenda, please?
Yes, thank you. Number 1, 2020-112, in order of adoption of lease agreement with Father Bill's and Mainspring, Inc. at 39 Broad Street.
Thank you. And I do just want to recognize that we do have a couple of folks here joining us this evening from Father Bill's. So if folks have questions, I want to make sure that folks know that. But we have both John here, and I think we have Pat here as well. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Chris, first. Do we have anybody from the mayor's office or from the administration who would like to speak on this first before we open it up to the folks over at Father Bill's?
For you, Madam President, just briefly, if I can, via intro. This is the next step in the ongoing public safety complex process, which obviously includes a lot of moving parts. Where this body left off, the approval was granted to appropriate funding for and the purchase of 39 Broad Street, which would be the location of a new facility for Father Bill's and Mainspring within the city. What's before you tonight is the lease agreement with Father Bill's Mainspring for that property. The only difference between this document in what's existed previously between the city and Father Bill's at its current locations is essentially the length of term. The length of term in this case is 99 years, and that number came from a good amount of due diligence from our legal team, Solicitor Timmons, from Mr. Yazwinski, the CEO of Father Bill's, as well as vetting it with a number of state agencies and some folks within the industry, primarily, entirely, because the term of the lease was very important to, and John can get into more detail on the specifics of this. The term of the lease is very important to the outside funding agencies to ensure that a viable project could exist, that they wanted a length of term that was at this end of the spectrum, as opposed to what we have done previously. With that, I would turn it over, or just let everyone know that on the call is Solicitor Timmons to answer any of the potential legal questions. We have John Yazwinski, the CEO of Father Bill's Mainspring, to talk a little bit more about the programming they have planned and really what is a unique opportunity in the city, unique opportunity for the region to really do something special, to really transform the shelter into a full-service housing resource center. John had talked about that at the last council meeting, and I know he's talked to some of you individually as well, but he's here to talk about those details. I know if there aren't a great deal of questions tonight, it's important for Father Bill's to have this move forward if possible, if the body is prepared, as they are approaching a couple of application deadlines relative to some of those financing programs we discussed, where that lease in hand is very important for them to secure the funding going forward. So with that, I turn it back to you, Council, Madam President, and if anyone has any questions for Mr. Yazwinski and Mr. Timmons, we can go from there.
Thanks, Chris. I'm actually just going to turn it over to Mr. Yazwinski first. And John, just welcome. I appreciate that you're joining us here tonight. I'd like to give you a few minutes to just say hello to folks. I know, I think everyone here has met you already, but if you want to just do a brief welcome, and then we can open it up to questions for my colleagues.
No, great. Great to see everybody again. Again, it's John from Father Bill's, CEO and President of Father Bill's in Mainspring. This is a great night, a great opportunity. As you know, I appreciate you coming this past winter to talk about the new model, right? That the city has asked us to relocate over to 39 Broad Street in support of the public safety headquarters. And with this, we've taken the opportunity to look at to bring best practices and not just build an emergency shelter at Father Bill's Place, but to really look at a new model. And I'm thankful for all of you over the last several months that have met with us and got to see the new model, got to know the programming, and then I think it's a bold move, and I think it's something that the rest of not just Massachusetts but this country can look at and say we are really ahead of bringing best practices to how to address homelessness in the city of Quincy. I think for this particularly is now that we've been asked to relocate across the street and to build a housing resource center that it's just not just a day program, it's not just an emergency shelter, but it's also permanent supportive housing. And with the long-term commitment that's needed to get the financing for this, we have approached our public sources at the state level, and all conversations with them have been very positive about getting this funded this upcoming year. With that, though, is, that this is, close to a $20 million project, and we are looking at bringing in a lot of public dollars. For us, is to know that a long-term commitment is needed. In all honesty, across it, they really want ownership, and if not ownership, it needs to be a long-term lease. So, for ground leases that include projects like this for the funding sources at the Department of Housing and Community Development, typically 99-year terms is really needed to get the appropriate financing. That's gives us the best chance to get this thing done. So in a matter of 2 weeks, we are putting in our first application to the state of multiple applications, and having site control is critical. So again, this lease has been very well done by the city and by our team and by the state. So all parties know that this is a solid lease to move forward with a ground lease, to continue to make sure that we're taking care of our most vulnerable neighbors. So with that, I would open it up for any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Yaswinski. Do any of my colleagues have any questions for John or for Pat? Council McCarthy?
Thank you, President. Good evening, John. Hi, Pat. I hope all is well. I don't know if I have some questions directed to you folks or to you folks and Mr. Timmons, but I went through the lease as best I could. Most of the lease I could understand. There's a couple of questions here that I wanted to throw by, and one starts off with the length of the lease. How do we get to 99 years? I know that there has to be stability when borrowing money from institutions to do the work, but why aren't we at like a 30-year mortgage? Why aren't we at 30-year increments so we have more than 99 years to look at, maybe options in regards to, as Mrs. Mahoney stated throughout her conversation in the last 30 minutes, the changing world we live in. So I'd like to know that question first, how we get to 99. And the second question I'd like to get is Quincy's involvement after the building and Father Bill's is moved over and after the building is put together. Where does Quincy go from there? Is Father Bill's on its own? Do they lean on Quincy for things? I just want to get a clearer picture of that. So 2 questions, and maybe they're both to Mr. Timmons.
Well, I would say they're more for Mr. Yaswinski to answer, Councilman McCarthy.
Okay.
I'm a draftsman here, and some of that stuff you talk about is policy stuff. And I do know the term was something we went back and forth on, and he can fill you in on that component.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, David. And again, you can absolutely, planning departments, your city planning department will reiterate what I'm going to say is that we are being asked to move across the street, and we are asked to go after, and not being asked, we are going after public Department of Housing, HUD, federal and state public resources to build supportive housing and emergency shelter with public money. And across the board, Department of Housing and the financing agencies of the state have come back to Mr. Timmons and Chris and us and all of us, and our planning department will reiterate this, is that if you're not going to give us ownership, if we're not going to buy the parcel, which is absolutely fine with us, then it's got to be a 99-year lease or we just can't move. Because the federal and state government, especially Department of Housing at the state level, are not going to finance and give us the money to build this property without a long-term lease. And when you look at all the restrictions and covenants of low-income housing tax credits, new market tax credits, the housing innovation bonds, all the funding sources that we're going to go after to be able to accommodate the city and move across the street and build a new facility that we're very excited about, then the threshold is 99 years. And that's pretty common standard practice in the industry of affordable housing. If they want perpetuity, they say, we want ownership. If Father Bill's does not get ownership of 39, we are fine with leasing it, which has been offered to us by the city, but then it's got to be a 99-year lease, or we do not have a appropriate project to get financed and funded by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
So somewhere along the line, you're telling me there's something that says 99-year lease or nothing. There's nothing in there about 30 years. Or are you just kind of going with the flow because that's what's been done in the past?
We do not have a project to go across the street and finance this project with capital resources where you need to have ownership. If we do not have ownership and 99 years classifies as ownership, then we do not have a project.
So 99 is written somewhere and you can show me that.
If we have a housing loan, it's minimal 50-year term. From there, they've never done anything less than 70. If we want to get this funded, it's got to be 99 years, David. So can we
No, I hear you, John, but now you just said 50 to me.
What I'm saying to you is these are the benchmarks on different funding sources. What we've been told by the by the state, and what we have told the city, and we have shared the emails from Community Economic Development that says this is the benchmark, is we just do not have a project. Then let's talk about ownership. If you're not going to give us 99 years, we do not have a project. We will not apply. We will talk about ownership then. Sell us the property.
Okay. The second question I had was Quincy involvement after you're in there, regardless. Of course, if it's leased, what's Quincy's involvement after that? Do we step away more or less like we do right now with Father Bill's?
In what way of involvement?
Anything, emergencies, in regards to, you have, water pipe break issue in the building, maintenance, things, all those things,
Anything that deals with our facilities that's a maintenance or building issue is on Father Bill's in Mainspring to deal with.
Okay, so the lease,
all building,
the lease is pretty much, and the payment, the lease, and I know what that number is.
Ground lease.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Then you're on your own.
Anything above the ground, we've got to take care of.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Council McCarthy. Do any of my other colleagues? Oh, Councilor Phelan.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. To John, question for you. So basically, once you get the lease, you take over the building, and it's Father Bill's and Mainspring's responsibility.
So it's a ground lease, Chuck. So it's the ground, and then we'll still work with the city as we proceed right now about that existing building, of course, right? We're inheriting a very distressed property.
Right.
This ground lease is really related, it's related to the buildings that we're going to build. If we build a temporary that could be turned into permanent, if we never built the HRC, then whatever structure is there, then we take responsibility of that facility.
Right. So you're accepting that responsibility. So once you're in and working on the building, it's basically your responsibility. Obviously, if there was sewer and water, that would probably be the city's, because that's what we normally do for every building.
Correct.
So, but the rest of it is your responsibility. You're taking care of payments and everything.
Yep, and it's been that way at Father Bill's too.
Ever since.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councilor Phelan. Any other questions? Oh, Councilor Harris? Oh, Councilor Harris, so you're still muted. Here you are.
Yep. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilor Mahoney. Oh, Councilor Mahoney, do you have a question, or do you want to just?
I want a second, but can I also ask a couple of questions too?
Of course, please.
This is to John. And I apologize, I was having some background noise here, so I missed a few questions. So if I'm asking you to repeat things, I apologize. But I know that you need the 99-year lease to be able to get the capital improvement funds that Father Bill's and Mainspring will be taking on to build. What's the time frame for building the new facility once you get the funding?
Yeah, so our biggest issue right now is site control, which we don't have, which we could hopefully get tonight.
Yep.
Once we have site control, we will apply this fall for the variety of funding sources. Our hope would be is if we get funded for what we call phase one, which would be the Housing Resource Center or the shelter day program, we would start construction in a year from now. And so we're looking at, best case scenario, we're looking at probably 2.5 years, two to 2.5 years of for occupancy of the Housing Resource Center.
Okay. And then, so in that time period, you would potentially stay at the location you are at now, correct?
So we are actually in very positive conversations with the city on trying to work with their timeline, and their timeline would look at trying to have us move out of 38 Broad Street by the spring, and knowing that we won't, knowing that we don't have site control until now, we can't apply, we won't be able to.
So realistically, you won't be able to actually have anything built in that time period for that.
Right.
So I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Timmons then, because obviously that puts a strain on, you're currently at a location and the city is, and as far as I know, I mean, this is something that you were hoping to do, but it's not like I'm not sure if I say this incorrectly or it sounds wrong, I apologize ahead of time, but your cart is being pushed to be able to move over to this building that the city purchased for Father Bill's. It's a good location. You accept the location. You don't have a problem with that. But it wasn't Father Bill's idea to go there in the first place. This was part of the master plan from the administration, correct?
We're very appreciative. We always ask just to be part of the housing, the development. Just tell us where we can go and we'll see if it's doable. We feel like this is doable. We still haven't done all the testing. We haven't got in there. We haven't done the ground. We don't know, right? We still don't know. But once we get site control, we can get in there and we can do that. We are in conversations with the city to try to match their timeline where the existing 39 Broad Street, could part of that building be renovated temporarily to move Father Bill's 38 Broad Street population out into a temporary shelter, and then still build the Housing Resource Center on the back end. So we are working with the mayor's administration and his team on how could we move to keep up with the city's timeline. And I would ask the city to answer any more.
So I don't know if this is to Mr. Walker or to Mr. Timmons. Could somebody elaborate a little bit on that? Because we definitely have a situation here where there's a project. I just want to understand how that's
the situation, through you, Madam President, the situation was one that was anticipated. In fact, at the council's last vote, the appropriation of the purchase.
That last vote before the pandemic?
It was understood. No, I believe it was October or November of 2019. The body voted an appropriation to purchase the property, and within that includes monies, as was anticipated at that time, knowing that the long-term vision of Father Bill's was far more substantive than simply relocating a shelter to a different building. We understood at that time that there would be a temporary fit out of the facility that would accommodate the immediate needs of Father Bill's at the point the time came when the city was prepared to move relative to its construction. At the same time, allow for construction of a new facility at the same location. We're working very closely together. It's not uncomplicated to make this happen, but that has been the goal and the plan from day one, that Father Bill's would temporarily move into a temporary location, and then that would facilitate the construction of the permanent facility at that same location. And that's where we are right now. We're working through those details. There's a level of confidence on both ends that this is something where the two timelines can meet in a nexus. Not to say there's not going to be bumps in the road, not to say there's not going to be issues. A project of this magnitude, there will be, but we feel pretty good, and I think Father Bill's feels pretty good that we're going to get to where we need to be.
So the city's going to fund, so we're going to give them a 99-year lease. We'll be able to get the capital improvement funding for them to be able to build out the building to meet the needs of the program that they have. And then if they have to temporarily move someplace, the city will then fund their temporary moving. Is that what will happen?
I'm not sure.
If they have to move out of Broad Street. Yeah, I guess if they have to move out of Broad Street to
They
have.
don't. As I said, the plan from the beginning, going back to October 2019, was to have the temporary facility on Broad Street at the site that they'll also be building the permanent facility.
Who's doing the build up for the temporary facility?
John, I don't know if we got that far yet. I don't think so.
Father Bill's, we're really appreciative of the city because Father Bill's in Mainspring is excited about moving across the street for the permanent. We are, knowing it's a big chore for us, we are fully committed to getting the majority of the financing from the state to fund the permanent facilities. The temporary facility is something that we just cannot do, but we are willing to move.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. All set? Okay, thank you. So we have a motion made by Councilor Harris, seconded by Councilor Mahoney. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Crowe,
Yes.
Counselor DeBona,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Mahoney,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Palmucci, Counselor Phelan,
Yes.
President Liang.
Yes.
8 members. It passes.
Thank you. Thank you again, John, for your time, and Pat, you as well. I appreciate it. Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is number 2, 2020-113, a resolve on November election acts.
Thank you. And our colleague who introduced this, unfortunately, is not here this evening, but if any of my colleagues have any questions on this or would like to discuss it. Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move on from this agenda item. Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda, please.
Number 3, 2020-114, gift for $500 for Aspire Health Alliance from DARE.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor McCarthy to accept, seconded by Councilor Kane. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Crowe,
Yes.
Counselor DeBona,
Yes.
Counselor Harris, Counselor Mahoney,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Palmucci, Counselor Phelan,
Yes.
President Liang.
Yes.
8 members.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, please. Number 4.
Next item, 2020-115, a gift for $275 from various donors for veterans gifts.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Kane. I'm sorry, I actually didn't ask for the last one either, but does anybody have any questions on this? No? Great. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Crowe, Counselor DeBona,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Mahoney,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Phelan,
Yes.
President Liang.
Yes.
8 members.
Thank you. Number 5, please, Madam Clerk.
A gift for $6,000 from Copeland Family Foundation for Quincy Animal Shelter.
Motion to accept.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilor McCarthy, seconded by Councilor Kane. Any questions or comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Crowe,
Yes.
Counselor DeBona,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Mahoney,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Phelan,
Yes.
Counselor President Liang.
Yes.
8 members.
Okay, the item passes. Number 6, please, Madam Clerk.
2020-117, a gift for $88.20 from Wayne Alarm Systems for Quincy Animal Shelter.
Oh, we just did that one. Motion to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilor McCarthy for item number 6 here, seconded by Councilor Kane. Any questions or comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Crowe,
Yes.
Counselor DeBona,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Mahoney,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Phelan,
Yes.
President Liang,
Yes.
8 members.
Great. Item passes. And last on the agenda here, number 7, Madam Clerk.
2020-118, a gift for $200 from Richard and Mary Cox in memory of Jack for Quincy Animal Shelter.
Motion to accept.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Counselor McCarthy, seconded by Counselor Phelan. Any questions or comments on this item? Okay, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Kroll, Counselor DeBona,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Mahoney,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Phelan,
Yes.
Council President Liang,
Yes.
8 members.
Great. Item passes. Next, could I have a motion to approve previous meeting minutes from June 15th, 2020, please?
Motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, I apologize. I know we have made a change recently for items like this. We don't need a roll call on this anymore, correct?
That's right.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, so meetings pass. Communications and reports from the mayor and other city officers or city boards. Madam Clerk?
Yes, I do have a couple of communications this evening for utility requests to refer to Public Works Committee for advertising. A grant of location for Mass Electric at 1 Babcock Street and a grant of location for Mass Electric at 480 Center Street. Those will be referred to Public Works Committee for advertising.
Perfect, thank you. Any other communications or reports? Okay, seeing none. Unfinished business and preceding meeting. Okay, reports of committees. Council McCarthy?
Yeah, just early we had our finance committee on the $14 million appropriation for the Learning Center. After discussion, it was tabled. Probably should have been tabled right off the bat. We probably shouldn't have had that discussion, so my bad. But I will work with the administration and get it back on the agenda with the appropriate other information that Mrs. Mahoney wanted, and see if we can get that Special Education Learning Center priority off the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought, for those of you who are still on this call and were able to attend, I think it was a really fruitful conversation. I also think that the information that is to come is going to help further, again, like Councilor Mahoney said, help us to make an educated decision. So I appreciate you saying my dad, but, these conversations are important for folks to tune into as well. So I think it's, additional opportunities for us to talk about this important decision. But with that, are there any other reports of other committees?
I have traffics. Is that?
Yeah, Councilor Harris?
Yep. I have traffics. Is that, is this the time we do it?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All the traffics were advertised in 827 Quincy Sun. Positive recommendation made by the Ordinance Committee. Ward 1, 2020-103, add handicap parking at 124 Albatross Road.
Okay, so are you making a motion to approve that?
Make a motion to approve, yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
All those in
These
favor?
can also go under.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the item passes.
2020-104, add no parking at the west side of Curlew Road, 650 degrees north of C Street to 750 degrees north of C Street.
Second.
Motion to approve. Yeah.
Motion to approve by Councilor Harris, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ward
Okay,
2.
item passes.
Ward 2, 2020-105, add handicap parking at 18 Berkeley Street. Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve by Councilor Harris. Do we have a second? Seconded by Councilor Kroll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the item passes.
2020-106, remove handicap parking loading zone at 537 Washington Street. Motion to approve.
All right. We have a motion to approve by Councilor Harris. Do we have a second? seconded by Councilor Kroll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes.
2020-107, add a stop sign. This is Ward 4. Add a stop sign on Twitter Street, southbound at Granite Street. Motion to approve.
And through you,
Yes,
Madam Chairman,
Sorry.
a lot of this is in conjunction with Councilor Palmucci. We've been working on it together. I don't see him on the call right now. So I wasn't sure if we should go ahead and pass it, but he's been very involved in these.
We can table that, right?
Yeah, this is one, I mean, if this is one that you'd like to hold on, you know, if you feel strongly about it, considering the two of you have been working together on it, we can always hold off until the next meeting.
Yeah, I think we're going to need him on these because it's kind of a joint thing. And there's 107, 108, 109, and 110, which is all on Kidder Street. I know the Southwest Community Association was hoping to pass these. I mean, they were advertised. Both me and Council Palmucci sent letters to the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to actually just leave them on the table and take them up at the next meeting.
Okay. Madam Clerk, is that something that we can do for 107 through 110, Councilor Phelan, you said?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Harris, are there any others, any other traffics?
One more in Ward 5, remove handicap parking at 46 Eustis Street. Motion to
I'd second it, make the motion to approve.
Great. So we have a motion to approve by Councilor Harris, seconded by Councilor Phelan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Item passes. Councilor Harris, you said there were no others, correct?
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So moving on, there are no other reports of committees, correct? Fantastic. We're going to go ahead and move on to presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrance. Councilor Phelan?
I'm going to do a remonstrance. First one I've ever done as a city councilor, even going back to the old days. I just like to take a minute to really thank the city clerk's office and the election department. They worked very hard on this election. I was working for some other candidates who are around the county, and Quincy shined compared to the rest of the other 28 cities and towns in North Quincy. The election workers, the people who did the early voting and everything. I did my voting by mail, was able to send it in, and it was seamless. I went on my ballot to see where it was, and within 4 days, they had the ballot had been scanned in. I knew my ballot was where it was supposed to be. So we have other towns in Norfolk County that didn't get their count done until Thursday, which I think was, I don't know, that's their problem. But having been around the whole county that day, I'm very proud of the work done by Nikki Crispo and all our staff who worked. They were here at 8 o'clock at night on weekends, getting this thing ready and making sure Quincy's count was done by 9:30 and it was done accurately. So I just can't say enough. And having gone and seen other cities and towns, they just did an absolutely fantastic job. So thank you, and thank you to all the members of the election department, the whole clerk's office. Even some of our own staff in the city council helped out a lot of those nights, and other people around the city. So it was a real effort, and I think it showed because we shined that night. Our votes were counted; they were counted accurately. Everyone got their votes in, and so I just want to say that I was really impressed sitting back and looking at it as a bystander for the election department, the clerk's office here in the city. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Phelan. That's very, very well said and very true of our clerk's office. And I think no surprise to any of us that, you know, they outshone everyone in this county. Anybody else have any petitions, memorials, or remonstrances? Councilor Harris?
Yes, I'm just going to follow up about what took place earlier this evening. I'm not too thrilled, and in fact, I'm very disappointed. I see bad politics I've seen some bad politics throughout throughout the time that I've been on this council. And I'm going to be really quick and say, when we have different committee meetings, nobody should have a second shot at speaking before somebody did. And that happened here this evening. And I'm not pleased because I think maybe the outcome would have been different. With that, that's all I really have to say. I've seen some things over the years, and really disappoints me sometimes when I see certain things brought up in this council, certain things are said in this council, and when the right thing isn't done when it should be probably done, it's very disappointing. And you know what? The only people who are really affected are the people that we represent. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Harris. I think that, we certainly are not folks who do not make mistakes, but I think that we also strive to try to continue to do better. So I'll make sure to follow up with committee chairs as well as yourself and myself to make sure that we're correcting those errors moving forward. But thank you for sharing that and for being honest. Any other presentations of any petitions, memorials, or remonstrances? Okay, seeing none, motions, orders, and resolutions. Okay, seeing none, scheduling of committee meetings and public hearings. Our next regularly scheduled council meeting is Monday, September 21st. And, if the will of the body, if they're comfortable starting at the 5:30 start time, we'll do that. Again, meeting over Zoom unless otherwise posted. But do any of my committee chairs have any meetings that they would like to schedule between now and then? Councilor McCarthy?
Well, Madam President, I'd probably be looking at a finance meeting, probably like we had tonight, to solve the $14 million appropriation issue and get that out of the way.
Okay, so do you want to do a 5:30 start time for finance on let's say Monday, the 21st, and then we'll do the regular council session at 6:30. Do you think an hour is enough time?
Yeah.
All right, you got it. Any other meetings to be scheduled? All right, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Great. Thank you, team. It's good to see you all again.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.